gonna keep 'em down on the farm after they've seen Teri? How you gonna keep 'em away from Broadway, dancing around and painting the town? How you gonna keep 'em away from harm? That's a mystery. They'll never want to see a rake or plow, and who the deuce can polly-do a cow? How you gonna keep 'em down on the farm after they've seen Teri?
No. I'm not specifically aware of farms, as I have my own little tomatoes that I grow in my backyard.
Because since like New York is like has a lot of buildings, you really don't see like much of like a big farm around here. You mostly see a bunch of buildings and some community gardens and trees, but not a farm.
No, I don't think that. No, because I come to the city, New York. Never.
In New York State itself?
Well, actually, the city, the 5 boroughs.
No, I do not. In the city itself?
The farm was settled by the Dutch in 1697 when pretty much all of New Amsterdam, which is now New York, was farmland settled by the Dutch. And so this is the last remaining homestead of that era, really. So it's really special and pretty much was family owned until the beginning of the 20th century.
I saw pictures of food being trucked to the East River and brought over to Manhattan. I mean, the north of Manhattan were farms. As the city grew, the farming land basically disappeared. So now the urban farms in a certain way are looking back at the past, trying to bring back food production within the city. A food production that existed, and it's gone over time.
I don't know how many generations now, it's probably a number of them, but Americans used to grow their own food. And I think there are a lot of people who still do have backyard gardens, but it's definitely not the vast majority of those of the 18 million living in New York City.
Something that's really interesting is that our school summer break, the reason that was institutionalized was so that children could help with the harvest. But now we're so disconnected from that we do need other and more creative ways to educate our children and our adults about food and where it comes from.
Here, Joe. See how they peck at it?
When a lot of this area was being developed in the 70s, luckily this particular piece of land, Jim Trent, the president of our board, and Senator Frank Padovan sort of teamed up and protected it, luckily. So now we're overseen by the Parks Department and the Historic House Trust, and this land, this piece of 47 acres actually is protected and will never be developed. So we became the nonprofit Queens County Farm Museum in the 70s. The beauty of this job is that no one day is like the next, and twice a day around 8 a.m. and around 4:30 p.m. we do animal chores, and it's a nice constant. We have a small little livestock team, 9 goats, 7 sheep, 200 laying hens, 2 cows. We raise about 6 pigs a year. So we rotate responsibilities for animal chores.
So, go eat. Go eat, Domino.
I work with an awesome team of, as it so happens, women. And we do have a couple of guys that have come in and out of the crew, which is great. Male energy is really important, especially when you have so many women. It's funny because, I mean, there is a stereotype that farming is sort of a male-centric profession. I hear it all the time, like, oh, you're not wearing overalls and you're not an old man on a tractor. And
I think if you've never met a farmer, you probably have a very like cartoony kind of picture in your head of overalls and a hat, maybe a piece of straw and a tractor.
When I have worked on farms in the past with men, there is a different energy. I mean, I think that there's this assumption that men operate the tractors, or that men, operate the weed whacker, any sort of like machinery-based thing, the guys will take care of it. It's funny to fall into those roles. It's true. I mean, it's happened on farms where I am, and I'm reluctant to I had been reluctant to sort of push myself to know more about machinery or tractors. And I guess at the end of the day, yeah, we all feel really empowered. We feel pretty fearless. I don't think that we're lacking at all by not having men. Unfortunately, there's a reason why there's this upsurgence of young farmers and people trying to reclaim some sort of sense of where food is coming from, and to try and understand where we went wrong and why fast food and the fast food culture sort of took over.
Every time that there is a food safety crisis, people realize how fragile the system is. Every time there is E. coli cases or, I don't know, tainted meat cases, people suddenly think about that. But they also tend to forget. That's something that really I find very interesting in the American food system, how fast consumers forget.
I think that kind of what happened in rapid succession was that we had a couple of food scares where there was E. coli on spinach and a couple of things like that. And that got people really asking questions, is my food supply safe? Is my food system safe? And the answer to the question, I think, is if you know your farmer and you know where your food is coming from, your food is that much safer. So that created an incentive for a lot of people to sort of figure that out.
Thinking about food in ways that were not just about what's in your dish, but also what's behind that and how that dish gets to your table.
We've become a very food-conscious culture in so many ways, and I think people know a lot more about food now than they ever have in the past, and at the same time there's this dichotomy because we're so much less connected to the land, living in cities and even in suburbia. When I worked in the South Bronx, I met kids, and we asked them, where do vegetables come from? Well, they come from the supermarket, because that's the only place they've ever seen them. And so does Lucky Charms.
A friend of mine worked in agricultural education in the sense that they would bring farm animals to school groups. Once brought a small calf to a school in the Bronx and asked the kids a question, where does milk come from? And one of the kids' answer was, what, you think I'm stupid? It comes from the store, right? So you get that sense that even adults are divorced from where their food comes from, what the processes are. There's more awareness now than there has been in the past.
There is a real disconnect between food and where it comes from. They have an amazing urban farm in the middle of Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. So one day, one of the boys in the program, his job was to go in and collect the eggs from the coop. And he was doing that, and he picked up an egg, and he was like, oh my God, this is like an egg. And like this light bulb comes on for him that like eggs come from chickens. And so that kind of tremendous disconnect, I think, really is part and parcel of city living. But I think every single one of us, like the first time you walk into a garden or walk onto a farm field and pick a leaf off a lettuce plant and eat it, you're making this tremendously different connection between the source of the food and the fact that this is the food that you consume.
It's sad, I think. And I think to grow and eat healthy, fresh food is not a hard thing, but it's apparently not as common. As such, we have a farm stand here open five days a week during the height of the season. I definitely think that people embrace what we do. This has been our 4th season. I would say we've gone from being open 2 days a week for our farm stand to now almost 7 days a week with a lot of demand. So that's heartening to know that people really like what we grow and want more of it.
So I've been living in New York City all my life, right? The whole New York City, I lived in everywhere except the Bronx. So the train behind us, like I used to be on that train and look at it and say, what are these guys doing there? They cannot be growing anything, right? And so one day I actually got a flyer, about a farmer's market. So I tried it out. I realized they were hiring. I said, wow, I would always want to do something like this. This may be the closest thing I would do for free, right? This or be a first responder.
I'm from Park Slope, Brooklyn, so I grew up in the city. And then I got interested in farming at where I went to school in Poughkeepsie at Vassar. When most people start our program at East New York Farms, they don't have generally a lot of experience. Not a lot of folks have like a current connection to food. They eat fast food and they don't know how to grow things, so they're coming kind of with an interest in helping the community and making a change, and we kind of go from there.
This side is going to be higher, so we're going to have to put more.
When I was in 8th grade, the farm supervisor, she came to my school, which is UFC, and she talked about the farm and what we could do to help the community, and I was very interested, so I signed up. Just like farming, because I never was interested in farming, so that would be something new. Working here, it'll like teach me, I will learn like new vegetables that I didn't try before, so I'll try new vegetables and fruits, and I could just eat it as a daily thing, and it tastes good. I thought it would taste nasty, but it tastes good.
We're not necessarily saying that they're going to be farmers, right? Like even in the world in terms of industries, right? There's probably not even a lot of farmers, right? So I think for most part we want them to be leaders. We want them to be people who can work hard and have a hard work ethic, and there's definitely perseverance and having patience. Not instant gratification, right? Which is sometimes forced down that age group's throats. So definitely patience.
So with our compost area, we start with A. Then it goes to B, C, D, E, to 1, 2, and 3. That's when it's more broken down. They have different beneficials. So what we call beneficials, bugs that actually help take away pests or make the plants better. And we use that for, it's like more of a richer soil, and it helps to rejuvenate the soil. My name is Quadell. I'm from Canarsie, Brooklyn. I wasn't too into the farming thing, but I knew something new, and I like to try new things. But it's my first job, so I was very interested because of that. And this is celery. We don't harvest the whole plant. We like to harvest from the outside. Everything is organic, so that's better than using
no pesticides.
Yeah, no pesticides. So that's better than getting food that's sprayed to last longer and things that they use to kill pests, because it harms the vegetables itself. So
the stuff that we can grow, I was like, well, maybe we can just grow Swiss chard, maybe, or broccoli. But I didn't think that we can grow corn, and actually watermelons also. Those are definitely some things that surprised me. So a lot of times when people even come to the market, right, they're surprised. They say, where does this grow from? And we tell them here. They're very surprised, very skeptical. Very skeptical, and say, no, this stuff doesn't grow here. It romanticizes that farms are large things that tend to be all in rural areas. So I think it's hard for people sometimes to get the concept that, food can be grown in urban areas.
So the mission of East New York Farms is to create more food access in this neighborhood, and sort of focus on helping people grow more food and be able to get food that they want to eat, fresh and healthy. Stuff that otherwise they would be traveling a really long way to get, or they'd be getting it somewhere in the neighborhood, but not as fresh and definitely not organic. We're not necessarily special, we're just kind of an opportunity that wasn't here before.
For planners and policymakers, the assumption was that food was a rural issue. Farmers produce food in the rural areas, and there was never a scarcity that people recognized in cities. And it was only the last decade when people began to realize that certain neighborhoods had very few grocery stores and low access to fresh fruits and vegetables that people began to look for ways to produce food in the city and to improve the infrastructure so that fresh fruits and vegetables can actually be delivered to all kinds of neighborhoods in the city.
people are realizing that it's valuable to put a farmer's market in a neighborhood that otherwise might be ignored or under-resourced. For a number of years, nobody was interested in putting a farmer's market in East New York, so we were kind of like, well, that's absurd. Like, just because you live in a neighborhood that's lower income doesn't mean that you don't want fresh fruit and vegetables.
I think a huge thing is just access. I mean, I think that there are just communities, areas that just have bodegas and don't necessarily have supermarkets, let alone farmers markets.
So if you were to take a walk around the neighborhood, you might see that there are lots of corner stores, small convenience stores that primarily are selling processed foods, convenience food items that are calorically dense but nutritionally poor.
Of bodegas, like really, they don't really show the vegetables. They mostly want to sell the junk food, and they have the vegetables in the back somewhere or like a little corner, or it's not really much of a variety.
A food desert is an area where there is not a grocery store within a certain distance. The only places for people who live in that area to buy food are bodegas or corner stores. And the quality and type of food that they can get at those stores is much lower, and the food is much more expensive because they're small mom and pop stores who don't get the big bulk discount prices that a supermarket would get. There's a movement fighting back saying people have a right to food, for access to food. So food access is absolutely class dependent. And in richer, wealthier neighborhoods, you have fabulous supermarkets. They're even more affordable. Food is even cheaper for richer people than it is for poorer people. And they have more choice and more access and more supermarket square footage per capita than in these food desert areas.
There has been a misconception for a long time that just because somebody is lower income means that they don't necessarily want to consume healthier foods. And many supermarkets have left communities and are now serving like higher income neighborhoods. We're sort of rebuking that by you could see here that this market probably serves thousands of people on a given Thursday, and so there definitely is demand for fresh produce.
It's true that there are places where there is no fresh food available, there are no supermarkets, there are only little bodegas, or even, not even that. So in that sense, yes, it's difficult to have access to healthy, fresh food, but at the same time, the communities that are there try to get creative with what they have. And at times because of that, you have great experiments in terms of, growing food in abandoned lots, for instance.
Many of these community gardens and urban farms are located in low-income neighborhoods, and that's partly because in the 1960s and 70s, those neighborhoods had lots of vacant land, and community residents were really engaged in taking back vacant lots and turning them into green spaces and growing food. In neighborhoods like East New York, Brooklyn, for example, the community really depends on the food for added nutrition. There are very few grocery stores in the neighborhood selling fresh fruits and vegetables. But also, and more importantly, it's not about the food. It's really about community building.
We recently received the award from the USDA Farm Credit for making innovation best practices in New York City. One thing is agriculture. So agricultural programs, and so because in New York City we don't really have agriculture, but the rest of the states they have agricultural sector. So eating locally grown produce tastes better, more healthier, and also safer. more safer because we know the farmer who grow the food for us is really good. And also in terms of this is like an environmental point of view, if we are eating locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables, so we fighting the childhood obesity and also many public health issues, a lot of issues, challenges in New York State and New York City, those kinds of issues. It's really great to increasing locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables.
We know that the availability and the affordability of fresh fruits and vegetables is a key determinant of health outcomes. People are willing to walk, more than 10 blocks. Sometimes they walk up to 20 minutes to get to a farmer's market.
The idea is that if you buy at the farmers markets, you help farmers, you help develop these food systems, and you send a message to the big corporations, which is all correct. But creating an alternative food system that can live with the sort of corporate system doesn't change the life for many people who don't have the financial means to go to the farmers markets or go to these restaurants. I mean, some people simply do not have the choice. They have to eat what they can afford.
The American housewife. Who has a more important, a more responsible occupation? Wife, mother, laundress, counselor, maid, chef, purchasing agent. All of these are her duties at one time or another. If her income is limited, and most incomes are, it is her duty to be sure that what she has to spend buys the most in healthful, nutritious food for her family. Yes, she feels that she must buy wisely if she can. But just what does this mean? What can she do to be sure her money goes as far as possible?
Here in New York, in many food markets, people can use their EBT cards to get tokens and buy fresh food at a subsidized price.
For people who have food stamps, EBT, they can come here. We give them tokens to use in the market, and then for every $5 that they take out from their EBT card, we give them an extra $2 in health bucks, which is funded by the Department of Health.
And health bucks are $2 coupons that are redeemable for fresh fruits and vegetables only at farmers markets.
I think we make at least 60% of our income off of those different coupons and things like that. So it's a really important way for the farmers we work with to get income and for us to get income and for people to get access to fresh fruit and vegetables when otherwise they wouldn't be able to find it. So.
We do see people who come here, with and paying with EBT. I mean, they obviously aren't buying the most expensive items we have, but they know the difference between quality things that might come directly from a local farm versus something they might buy in a supermarket.
So a really interesting thing about eating locally, so when you're eating from your farmer's market, is that the bacteria that live in the soil where food is planted are localized. So there's different types of bacteria colonies in different regions of the world or of the country. And when you eat food that has some of that bacterial contamination that's local, and it's not bad necessarily, bacterial contamination, it's not the kind of thing that gives you food poisoning or makes you sick. But in terms of the bacterial kind of population that's in your gut, it matches what you've been exposed to. You're less likely to get sick from it. You're more likely to get benefits from it, to digest it better, to get more of that vitamin and mineral content out of the food because you're eating in a local way that your body has also been exposed to and is designed for. If you're shopping at your local farmer's market, then chances are you're eating more fruits and vegetables. Period. In addition to supporting local communities and the maintenance of farmland within a reasonable distance from where we live.
definitely there's a lot more farmers markets than there ever was probably before, but there are definitely some more neighborhoods or probably more, people probably need more farmers markets. Even if there's a farmer market there, they probably need it more days to be larger, to carry more of a variety of things. So yeah, absolutely they need more farmers markets.
We're supposed to eat locally, seasonally, organically. How are we supposed to do that in an urban area where there's not a lot of access to farms and fresh produce?
We make up part of New York City's food shed. We're part of that food basket. We have over 1,300 farms in our service area. We work in both Washington and Rensselaer counties. They feed the greater Boston and New York City markets. They feed the Capital District region. And our milk actually travels to Boston and New York City and all of New England. The Agricultural Stewardship Association is a land trust. Rather unusual because there are very few land trusts. Maybe we're the first in the Northeast that was dedicated to protecting farmland. That we were created by farmers and some local citizens who didn't want to see happen to farming here what happened in Saratoga Springs and Clifton Park, what happened in Albany, what happened in Syracuse, what happens all across this nation to farmland right outside urban areas. It really could have very detrimental effects on farming here if it becomes much more viable for farmers to sell off their farmland for developers than it is for farming.
On our farm in particular, over the years I've seen a lot of developments go up because we're right on the outskirts of Saratoga and Wilton in that area, and thinking about the big picture and how this land is really important, not just for my aesthetic pleasure, but also because everyone else needs it to eat, and these farms are producing really valuable food. So ASA was really at the intersection of that.
And this farm was one of our first projects using state funding. We protected 60 acres as kind of a demonstration project. When we protect a piece of farmland, we're protecting it permanently. It will always be available to grow food. And that's what I think is so important. You go to other places and there's oftentimes amusement parks and tourist attractions and hotels and shopping malls, and here we really have pretty much what it was like way back at the time of the Revolution. So it's a real special place. And it's farms that really provide that. It's farms and the woodland and the forests that are on the farm. So investing in farmland protection is one of the most phenomenal economic development tools you could use to try to grow the rural economy, because not only do farmers take that money that they get from selling their development rights or protecting their farms, they invest it in their own operation, they grow their business, but also it's a phenomenal thing is that then the public has something afterwards. They have a piece of farmland that's protection is always available to grow food. I mean, what other kind of economic development tool has that? Oftentimes when the government invests in businesses, they stay there 10 years and taxes, the tax advantages run out and they're out of there, or they might move to Mexico. You never know. Farmland, you can't move it. It stays. It's there permanently. I mean, that's the beauty of this program. Once you develop a piece of land, if you turn it into a shopping mall, let's say, it's almost impossible to turn it back into farmland. So once it's developed, it's gone. You've lost it forever. And as Will Rogers said, land, they're not making enough of it. Actually, I don't think he said it that way, but you'll get the gist. We've protected to date 93 properties, 14,200 acres, and we want to protect another 8,000 to 10,000 acres in the next 5 years. And we need the larger community. We need folks in New York City. We can't do it alone. We need help.
So what is happening in the rural areas impact on the urban centers. So that's why to help increasing local food system in the community, in every neighborhood of the city, is really good things to strengthen our local food systems and also for sustainable agriculture and also for long-term food security as well.
I believe that it's really great to protect farmland, and there's I love driving into towns like this, like Salem, and there's the right to farm signs like right up on the road. Right to farm is basically, sorry if you live next door to a farm and we're spreading manure, but you're gonna have to smell it for that day. It's our right to, you know, drive a tractor down the road. I'm sorry if it causes your commute to be slower. And it's just important that we cherish what we have to grow on and not, you know, turn everything into a building or a parking lot. So it's really important to keep what we have and keep producing food that's healthy for our society. I think that the kids that grow up in rural areas are just ready to explore just because they're used to doing that. And kids in the city, nobody's there to show them where their food comes from other than going to the grocery store. It's more of the responsibility of the parent to have to tell them these things. See the big difference between these? These are not the same variety, right? No, they're not the same.
It's what they live. You are what you live. You are where you're from. This is their heritage. This is so many of their families are involved, whether they live on a farm or work on a farm. So many of the families here are touched by the farming way of life.
Because we grew up around it and they didn't. We are only seeing and learning about them.
I know, they usually don't have this in their backyard. Some of them don't even have backyards, so.
They never like seen a farm before.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
or
say.
a cow.
Or any farm animals, except for like dogs or cats or guinea pigs or bunnies or whatever.
I really like nature and it's really beautiful.
And when our animals get big, we can kill them.
Do you eat their meat? How's it taste?
Good.
And it's all local farm-raised product.
That's true. Yes.
From the beef to the vegetables. You've seen the garden over there.
It's getting grilled off for the dinner Saturday night. It's the alfresco dinner.
Annette Nielsen, who is a food-oriented individual, local person, came up with our first alfresco 11 years ago. And it started as a celebration of our agricultural heritage. There's so much bounty in this area and so much that we are proud of and so much to celebrate. We have amazing farms. And we try to source everything that is involved from local growers and producers.
And I think this area has really grown a lot with local artisanal farmers like these. So this is a chance for people to sample their creations and people get a taste of the agriculture around here, what the products of our agriculture.
Born and raised in Jackson Heights, spent about 23 years there, and then about the same number of years in Flushing. I lived about a half a mile or a mile from the Queens County farm. Trying to shop locally. I go to the farmers market on Saturday. I know in Queens there were some farmers markets, but it was like a chore to find them and then a chore to get there. And then I just got a phone call from a friend who said, you know, they're not doing the farmers market in Douglaston this year, so they're diminishing.
This is our guard dog, Pecorino. She's really loud, but she won't hurt you. But we use her for the coyotes and things around us. My mom's really wanted to farm when she was a kid, and my dad worked at GE in New York City. We already had this place, but we weren't doing much with it, and they both decided to devote themselves more to farming, and so my mom became a full-time farmer, and then shortly after my dad joined, and now it's their business. So my mom makes the cheese. She's the cheesemaker. My dad and I do the milking.
The most important is lack of information, market information, where the market is to sell their product. So for example, farmer has a very specialty product, and also people living in urban areas in the city, so looking for specialty products. So that's why, so working with rural farms in the upstate, so market maker is a really virtual marketplace for them to make connection with the upstate farmers and also in the city here in urban consumers.
So this is the cheese cellar where we put the aged cheeses. We sell on the farm and to a few local places, but we also, most of our cheese and products go to Union Square Market. So my mom, she drives to New York at midnight. She drives almost all the way there, then she sleeps in a truck stop for a few hours and shows up by 7 to set up for the market.
Melts, and it's like real cheese and bacon. Well, we've been at the Green Market for 11 years, and at this market, I think, I want to say either 9 or 8, because it's a great venue. We have really wonderful customers, very loyal customers who, you know, come out no matter what the weather.
We really like to have small and medium-sized producers to get market, because the large-scale farmers, so large farmer, they have already marketing contacts. They know how to make a business. They have a lot of business contact, and so for small and medium-sized farmers, they don't have kind of like that access. Consumers here in the cities, not only in New York City, other areas throughout the state, they are also looking for locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables. So those kinds of things. So that's a market maker can help connect between producers and processor with the whole food chain actors.
I think everyone actually thinks farms are like our farm, you know, small, family run, everything done by hand, not high tech, concern for the environment. I think that's what people believe are farms. But, you know, most farms that are commodity based, you know, whether they're out in the Midwest or they're in the Northeast, are not farms like that. They may be family farms, but they don't have the luxury of doing what we do. So our farm is the image I think a lot of people have about what farming is like, but we're just minuscule in comparison to where most of the food comes from.
We have over 63,000 farmers in New York. 95% of farmers are small and medium-sized farmers.
New York State farms actually receive a much smaller proportion compared to other farms because we have small family farms up here. Most of the money that goes through the Farm Bill goes to large-scale commodity farms in out west. They don't go to this area at all.
There's a lot that's wrong with the Farm Bill, yeah, and that's one thing. It also, farmers who grow nothing in their fields get more money than farmers who would otherwise grow healthier foods in their fields, fruits and vegetables, as opposed to the top 5 subsidized crops. They can get paid to not grow wheat, corn, soy, cotton, or rice in their fields, but they would lose money if they grew fruits and vegetables in terms of their subsidies through the Farm Bill.
The Farm Bill supports commodity farm products, corn, soybean, wheat, rice, cotton, and it doesn't support growing fruits and vegetables, and it doesn't have any extra support for organic production.
The farms up here, their markets are the greater Boston and New York City and New England and Northeast market. Whereas the commodity farms, you'll see them go more towards the big processing, the processors who use wheat and who use soybeans, those kinds of products. So you're going to see it probably ends up more in processed products, whereas our milk really ends up in the refrigerator.
So it's been from 1974 till now to get from about maybe 120 cows to 1,000. The biggest thing for a cow is comfort. When they're comfortable, they'll make lots of milk. If there's anything wrong with a cow at all, the last thing she has to do is make any milk. So anybody that tells you we mistreat our cows is not true, or any dairy farmer. Each cow wears a necklace. That necklace, there's 2 transponders on there. One's for her activity. We can see that on a computer. The other one, when they walk through the milking parlor, it tells the computer which cow this is, and then it records how much milk she gives every time. So, and each cow has 6 pages of information for each one. If there are any problems with her, we can look on this page and see, okay, what happened before, how do we fix it? Just like a person.
With the delivery?
Well, anything, delivery, all that information's on there. So when you go to the doctor, you'd like to know what happened before.
Family farm. It's been this farm's been my family since 1946, but my family's been in this county since 1840. Traditionally, this was a potato and dairy farm, continuing the potatoes, and have expanded into other vegetables and sweet corn. A huge farm have a mechanical picker, but the mechanical picker can't be selective. It picks everything. So we're able to go down through 2 rows of corn and feel the end of an ear to see how full it is, and then hopefully without looking at it, without opening it, we can see that it's ripe. Whereas it's like that one. Of course, everyone loves sweet corn during the summer. And this was my 2nd and 3rd field this year. Then one afternoon we had a terrible thunderstorm and we had hail for about 10 minutes, and it ruined the first field of corn. So was quite a disappointment. That was a loss. The last few years have been a real struggle. Hopefully they realized how good it would be for everything, including the environment, that their food comes from a closer source than, say, cross country.
There are farms up here that actually produce food and sell it in New York City for the to community-supported agriculture, CSAs. And so they have members down there. There's one farm here that has 1,200 members in New York City. And they drive down and they meet the urban customers, and there's a really amazing bond that's formed.
So the organization was founded in the mid-90s. I became the executive director in 2006. And that was just around the time when I feel like there was this critical shift in the mindset, or in the kind of the degree to which people were aware of and thinking about and talking about food and food access and sustainable food, local, healthy food. All of these things sort of activated at the same moment, and people whooshed into the space. So we went really quickly from having 30-something CSAs to having over 100. The term CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture, and it's a unique market relationship where a community gets together and invests in a farm. In a rural setting, it looks different than it does in an urban setting. In a rural setting, it tends to be folks in the neighborhood around the farm invest in that farm. In exchange for that upfront investment, they get to come to the farm weekly and get their produce. Here in New York City, for the most part, there's farms that come from within a 250-mile radius of New York City. In one neighborhood, we'll make an upfront investment in that farm, and then the farm comes in and makes a delivery once a week.
So what we're doing is basically we're investing in the farm. So we're giving them literally their seed money for them to start planting. And then we have faith in them that, or in the weather as well, that everything will grow well. So what it is farmers tend to need their money. Farmers tend to need their money up front in the beginning. They need to hire employees, seasonal workers. They need to get their fields started. They need to literally buy their seeds, get their greenhouses going. So what we're doing is we're buying a share in the farm, literally. That's why we call them CSA shares.
I think one of the problems that when you have mass-produced food, sometimes you don't know where that food is coming from. And so I think there's a growing movement in Flushing of people who really care about where their food is coming from, what they're putting inside their own bodies, and also their children, what they're feeding their children. And I think we're making this group available for people who have that concern to participate and to have access to food.
So when we got the email flyer from this group and we saw, wow, everything's organic, it's locally grown, and it's like 7 blocks from where we live, and we can actually pick up very convenient rather than me having to drive someplace to pick up and then driving back to our apartment. So I think even if they were not organic, if it's a local farm, I think we would still join. But now, like local and organic and certified, like, whoa!
If you actually do the math, each of the boxes, it comes out to about $22 a box. And so if you think about it in the overall scheme of your budget, it's not that much more than what you would pay.
Some weeks are bigger. This is about a medium-sized share this week. So we only get what's good this week. All of our vegetables are picked within 24 hours of them being delivered to us.
See any watermelons anywhere? Let's start building it, stock up and save.
So I work for Accion and I help fund hundreds of food and farm businesses in and around New York City.
I also serve on a board of an organization called Slow Money New York. We work to bring people together to help them understand why it's important to invest in slower food businesses and sustainable agriculture. And then we seek to make investments. I was introduced to a farmer named Gudelio Garcia, and I thought, wow, this farmer is amazing. So my husband and I decided to help run a Kickstarter project for him. We set to raise $5,000 and ended up raising $8,000. We like to say that he has a very New York farm. I mean, he really grows everything like this, this tight. He's very skilled at what he does as a farmer. So it's incredible to know that on a single acre farm here, less than 16 miles from this house in Brooklyn, he grows over 70 varieties of vegetables and herbs, which is just incredible. CSA is a form of financing a business, especially farm businesses. It's popular. Personally, I'd actually never even been in a CSA.
It gives the community a one-to-one relationship with a farm. It gives them really affordable access to organic produce, and it gives them a relationship with a farmer. And for the farmer, of course, it provides this incredibly reliable market. They get the money at the beginning of the growing season when all of those expenses are incurred. So much of the work is done and money is spent before the first food is harvested. So it's a really nice win-win market relationship.
This is you can make chile relleno. Yes, that's very good. For me, it's a big help because I have the money before like a March. Yeah, March I pick up all the money, so I use the money for seed, for rent, and for everything for my guy. So I use one guy only every year. One guy I use. I like because it's 100% sure. Only I got to pick up and I bring to him. The people is happy. Yeah.
So the amazing thing about CSA, I think, is that people develop a relationship with a farmer. And that's a thing that's so unique. It's not just I give you money, you give me vegetables. It's a relationship-based transaction, and the farmers and the consumers get to know each other over time. So although we say that the farmers who grow for Just Food CSAs are organic, they're not all certified organic. A lot of them are sustainable, either for cost reasons or for bureaucratic reasons or for moral or ethical or personal other reasons. They have decided not to become certified organic, but all of them are using organic sustainable growing practices. And what's great about the CSA model is that the folks who join that CSA can talk to their farmer, can get to know their farmer, can visit their farmer, and can see how things are grown on the farm for themselves. And so because that relationship is so transparent and the folks in the neighborhood really can know what their farmer's doing, it becomes a proxy for that certification and they don't need it.
Gudelio isn't certified organic, but his vegetables are the most organic vegetables I've ever tasted. So we've called him hyper-organic, which is a term that we can use because we're not labeling him organic, certified organic, but it is, he's so beyond organic. He doesn't use anything. And you can taste the difference. So I don't think our clients, our customers, CSA members have any issues at all with the fact that he's not certified organic, but certainly there is a benefit to getting that certification.
This woman, she's like, is this good for me? And she picked up this prepackaged thing of lettuce. She said, it says all natural. That's good, right? And I was like, technically that doesn't mean a damn thing. What these terms mean in terms of how companies can use them, and then in terms of how consumers perceive them, and then in terms of how they're even regulated, how they're used, are just very widely. So
be sure to read the label. The information on the label is much more reliable than the flowery language of advertisements.
To them, organic means healthier, it means produced in a more sustainable way, it means more environmentally friendly, and it means more expensive.
Is this farm technically organic, or?
We can't technically say that we're organic, and I believe there's a bit of issue around us saying that we're organic, but we try to be as natural as we can, which means no pesticides, and we don't use steroids or hormones or any of that, so that's as all natural as we can be.
Maybe for various reasons they're not completely certified as organic, because you have to pay a lot of money to get that certification and maintain that certification, and small-scale farmers sometimes just simply can't afford that. So I've talked to farmers at some of the other farmers markets who, I asked them, how is your food grown? Do you use, a lot of pesticides and herbicides and all of that kind of stuff? And they say, we're basically organic. We're not allowed to say we're organic because we couldn't afford the however many thousands of dollars of certification for that kind of thing.
Well, we're not technically organic. You're allowed to call yourself organic if you make less than $5,000 a year off your produce, and you're allowed to call yourself organic if you pay $5,000 to the USDA to get certified. So we grow things organically. So we don't even use OMRI approved, organic pesticides and things like that, mostly because they're too expensive. But
So there's just sort of a little extra reassurance. I don't really have to think about it. I'm like, yes, this is really, you go into the grocery store, is it really organic? Did they just say that so they could charge 50 cents more? I don't know.
In a very simple example, the term organic has been so watered down to, facilitate certification for larger organizations, or farms rather, corporations. So it's made it very difficult for people on our scale for it to be relevant.
I think it's great that it still exists, and that it's as a standard, that it's in a way driving other farms to up their standards of production, that some farms are certified that way. I think there's a lot of frustration from farms who are certified that it is in some ways becoming less meaningful. So I think it is still important as a standard, but I don't think that it is really as meaningful as it was when it first started.
In a very simple sense, I would say that, organic certification started at a local, small scale as a certification that could set farmers apart from these giant corporate farms. When the national certification was put in place, the terms of it actually appeal to large farms, to large corporate farms. I usually buy organic, the organic produce option in particular, I usually go for. But, when you're buying organic cookies, it's sort of like, I don't really know what that means.
When those national organic standards were passed, I don't think anybody pictured organic cookies and organic all kinds of processed foods. And now you can do anything and certify it organic. And so organic isn't a proxy for healthy. Organic is a proxy for how things are grown in the field.
I guess we'd be a conventional dairy, using conventional methods. Organic is fine. If somebody wants to do that and follow that marketing path and do it, I have absolutely no problem with that at all. One thing I do get a little chuckle out of is organic maple syrup. I mean, what's more organic naturally than maple syrup? You take the sap out of the tree, you boil it down, you have syrup. But somebody has figured out that if I can say I have organic maple syrup, they can command a better price. It's a marketing tool. And that's fine, I have no problem with it.
The bigger the organic sector, the better, because you're mitigating some of the damage that's happening on farm fields across the country and across the world. But I think in terms of feeding your family healthy, locally grown is more important than organic, because knowing your farmer and protecting the agricultural resources in your community, I think, is more important than that.
I think there's just people are realizing that it's better when possible to just be able to talk to your farmer and see their land and see how they do it and know that you have a personal relationship with them. I think that's kind of becoming the new organic.
They believes that it's better to buy local than to buy organic. Because if you buy organic, you can buy organic from California, and then you have to ship it all the way here and pay for all those fuel costs.
So you go to the market, buy premium organic romaine lettuce or organic tomatoes. But you don't know how long has been already at the market. You don't know that. And also look at the environmental issue. How many miles travel from California come to New York City at the Whole Food Market, at the Union Square Market? So those kinds of things, really.
The produce comes into the plant, is processed, and moves out to the proper warehouses. From the warehouse to the food stores in its territory. And from the stores to the surrounding homes. Repeat that in all parts of the country, and you begin to get some idea why this gigantic system is the pattern of national distribution in America.
When you're looking at what is environmentally sustainable versus, what are your reasons for eating organic even, right? Because if it's just for your own physical health, but then, you're okay with eating blueberries and raspberries from Chile that have been flown over in an airplane using tons of fossil fuel, versus if you're looking at the bigger picture of the environment, then eat blueberries and raspberries when they're in season and don't eat them other parts of the year.
So buying direct, not organic, locally grown, you get better taste, more flavorful and really wonderful. So you don't necessarily need to be organic food to be healthy. So you can get locally grown fresh fruits and vegetables. It makes you very healthy and really great and wonderful things.
The farmers come from within 250-mile radius of New York City. So it's coming from our region, New York, New Jersey, sometimes Pennsylvania. Also by the fact that the farmers are here vending themselves, the farmers themselves are able to talk with the customers and educate them about, where they're growing the food, why maybe they can't get a mango here at the farmer's market.
You can meet us, you can come here, you can see exactly what we do, you can volunteer on our farm. So if you're really curious, you can find out exactly what it means to grow produce in an organic way without having that certification. We'll be adding material to the compost pile, but shaping it by hand, because it's important, kind of think of it like lasagna, to layer different materials. You have to kind of balance what you're adding to the pile in order to make a nice mix that has a lot of biological activity, but also holds a lot of the nutrients in there.
At the farmers market in Saratoga, I get this question quite often if I spray a certain crop. And I'll say, no, I didn't spray this. I didn't spray my beans, but I am not organic.
Factory farmers don't want to tell you what they're doing, right? Big conglomerates don't want to tell you what they're doing. ADM doesn't want you poking around in their business. But here with locally grown food, you can come and actually see what we're picking. You can participate as a volunteer. There's a lot of opportunity to interact with where your food comes from.
It's so interesting because I think we talk about CSA as a journey. And so many people, when they first join their CSA, they think they've finished the journey. They've joined the CSA and they're going to get these vegetables now and they're done. But really, joining the CSA is the first step on that journey, because you do begin this education about what it means to be a farmer and what that farmer is going through and how farm and food policy is affecting your community.
Is it something that's demanded, like the people in that community have to demand it, or?
Well, Just Food goes into neighborhoods that call us. So our approach has always been to go where people ask. It's demand driven.
Oh, I write a blog, Went to Mind Body Green, which anybody can contribute to and sort of give their experience about eating healthy, living a healthier lifestyle, that sort of thing. See, that's me picking the peas. I am born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I came over to Staten Island in 2004. I started digging around for ways to get good produce. The supermarkets really didn't have it. I saw in the local supermarkets this sort of a deterioration in the produce sections. Other people were still buying stuff, but I was sort of getting aggravated because I'd bring something home and the next day it would be spoiled. So there was something going on in these local markets and I wasn't quite sure what it was. So I started seeking out beyond that. I know that there's a Decker farm. I know there's some of the old farms that have sort of been preserved on Staten Island. in terms of how they're being used.
Staten Island is a beautiful place, you know why? Because nothing is damaged. Everything is okay. Everything I planned, I pick up everything. Everything is very good.
Staten Island's the borough of Parks, right? And it supposedly has the most green space in the 5 boroughs. But the use of the space is not necessarily profitable if you're going to create a farm. It's profitable health-wise. It's profitable for the community to continue to sustain good health. And is it more valuable to create a farm, or is it more valuable to sell the land to a developer who's going to sell a house for $500,000 a pop? And Staten Island could be the most powerful borough to sort of bring the message out, but it's not good for people's wallets. That's part of the issue.
We didn't think we could come up with a critical mass of people in Staten Island. We run the CSA here in Brooklyn. We knew that we would be able to promote it and hopefully get enough members. My generalization or assumption about Staten Island is that there probably is a market for it. Not enough farmers have identified that need, but also not enough people within the borough have really voiced or had a critical mass to say we need more CSAs.
Staten Island was mainly farmland for many, many years. Like, it struck me. I was like, wow, like we just keep on building banks and pharmacies and supermarkets, put outlets and high-rise condominiums, but we aren't concerned with creating farms that are going to sustain the population that are here. Like, yeah, we can use some of the space to potentially feed the people that live here.
So technically, if you could get more land on Staten Island, you would prefer to grow?
Yeah, that's much better for me, but I can find it. I know it's no more. Yeah.
It probably seems a bit distant, just like how I hear of Africa, but I've never been to Africa. I don't understand things that go on there. And I think people also take farming for granted. They think farming's a simple job. You don't have to be that smart to do it.
And I think you'll find that agricultural people, whether they're dairy farmers, crop growers, whatever, are probably some of your more intelligent citizens of this country. Not trying to brag, but the old image of, I can't do anything else, I guess I'll be a farmer.
So what I'm worried about is the new farmers. So who's going to grow for us the food in the future? Because less and less people are interested in farming or agriculture, looking for more business opportunities, high income job or whatever, really decent job or something. So that's just I'm worried about the new farmers.
There are immigrant farmers that are being helped to establish themselves and grow traditional vegetables and herbs, and then they can sell in the farmers' markets.
We see these farmers in the TV. We get the numbers over there. Look, it's this for farmers. We start a business, a small business, and then my brother-in-law called and he started, and after him, my husband and my family, and then my sister-in-law, and now all family we are here in the farmers.
They had a special project called the New Farmer Development Project that helped new farmers get set up on land and get established as vendors in farmers markets.
The initial they had us to start this, but now we have to do by ourselves all this, but we don't have any help.
Farming's a real hard living. You have to put in long hours. If you have a dairy farm, it's 365 days a year. And so I think that a lot of young kids, they see how hard their parents work, they see how difficult it is to earn a decent living, and they choose to do something else. The prices farmers are paid, it just doesn't, they can't make a living. And as more and more can't make a living, you're gonna see more and more get out of farming. We really need to pay farmers with a fair price for the food they produce. And we pay some of the lowest costs, lowest prices, the least amount of our income than most countries. The market isn't setting it, it's the food policy that's setting it. And it's the farmer that ends up subsidizing everyone else.
Unfortunately, there's going to be less farms, I'm afraid. There has been, that's been the trend for years. You know, a lot of little dairy farms are all gone. My farm like my own, which is quite specialized, I think will continue.
Because by the year 2050, we have to feed almost twice as many people on this planet as we do now, on the same or less.
So average, the farmers receive only 20 cents for every $1 spent for the food. So buying locally, so farmers who sell direct to the local community, their product, so they get the whole retail value $1 for $1 spent for the food. This is really great benefit for the rural upstate farmers as well. So in terms of economic point of view, it's really great for the farmers getting a chance be able to supply their products direct to the community here in the city.
A lot of the farmers that we work with really credit CSA for why they're farming today. It's an incredibly exciting development to hear some of the farmers that we work with say when they started farming, they never would have encouraged their children to go into farming. They never would have encouraged their nieces and nephews to go into farming, but now they are. And now that next generation is apprenticing on their farm and working on their farm and getting ready and looking to find their own farms. It's amazing that the CSA can provide that kind of sustainability and viability. Will provide real livelihoods to the farmers. I mean, none of the farmers we work with are getting wealthy, but if they know that they can put their kids through college, that makes a tremendous difference.
We're allowed to farm the way we farm, which is having all the animals out on pasture, taking good care of them, you know, and taking good care of the land, because we are able to bring our goods retail to Manhattan and get a price for them that is commensurate with the amount of effort we put into farming.
You know, dual benefit of supporting our region's farmers, so providing a marketplace where farmers can come and sell to a population that there's a very densely populated community where there's a lot of demand for their produce. And so the farmers markets themselves are supporting the farmers, supporting their livelihoods, and at the same time providing the best, highest quality produce for entire neighborhoods.
From policymakers to funders, the big question on people's minds is, what difference does it make whether there's a farm or a garden? What are the benefits of urban agriculture? Who comes to the farm? Do children get a chance to work on the farm? How long do they spend working on the farm? How much is being grown? Those sorts of metrics to begin to measure what those benefits actually are.
As a nonprofit and a public farm, we play a lot of different roles in the community. One is just being a beautiful public space for anyone and everyone to be able to come to and enjoy. Just being outside, I mean, For a lot of kids, it's just really nice to have 47 acres in New York City to be able to come to and walk around and experience. We like to, talk to kids, show them a carrot, show them a head of lettuce and how it grows, and pretty much we have signs everywhere in our fields during the growing season so that it can almost act as a self-guided tour. Kids can see for themselves what's what, which is exciting.
First and foremost was the need for an urban agriculture plan in New York City. There isn't a single urban agriculture plan for New York City that would lay out where the vacant land is that could be available for more farms and gardens to be created, and just how extensive does it make sense for New York City's urban agriculture to be. Should we try to have farms on some 3,000 acres of flat rooftop space in New York that could be suitable for urban agriculture? Should we try to fill up all of our vacant spaces with farms and gardens? What would that do to the landscape of New York City?
At this point in time, where small-scale farmers are so small in comparison to corporations, but I would say we're strong and we're growing faster than any other agricultural industry. So there is support, and it just has to come from the community. It has to come from the demand and from the people around us. And in our case, we see it. And I'd like to think that it's happening in other places too. It is. But it's daunting. I mean, there's a lot of, legislation and things that need to happen on a much larger scale. But there are people who are committed to making that happen. So I feel optimistic.
I had my husband out on the farm recently to support the farmer and go and do a volunteer session and pick peas. And my husband was really resistant to even going. And he started complaining because it was too hot. And, a few hours passed and we had picked a couple of rows of peas. And we ended up, after that, leaving and going out on lunch. And the next day came and went. And he came back to me and said, I had a really good time picking the peas. And then our share came in that week. And the peas were in the box. And he's like, wow, I picked these peas. And so it suddenly became like a full circle that he went and harvested these peas and was putting them on his plate and eating them. So I think there it clicked for him. Like, he made that connection with food, and he hadn't had that in like many, many years. We had a community meeting, and it actually went really well. I had a representative from Just Food, and there was a big calling. We had, I think, over 50 people, which Just Food's rep said had never happened before.
We have farmers lining up. We have farmers who want to participate in this program, but we just don't have enough funding right now to make it happen.
But it's just really important that to get community members to see agriculture as a community good and community valued service that they support in the same way that schools and hospitals and road work are supported. And even if you can't see these services that the farms are providing, that the community comes together to support it.
So anyone who wants to join us and help protect the land that feeds New Yorkers, join us.
And I really believe that if we nurture ourselves and our cities and our world when they're still well before they get sick, then we have a much better chance of keeping them that way. And it takes a lot less effort, even though it might seem like it's hard.
a way of growing food that is based on the idea that you have to work with nature in a way. It's sort of trying to understand nature better to work with it.
And there's only 1% of us in this country producing all the food that's used by everyone. So there are quite a few that we would like to get the message out that food comes from farms.
Keep them down on the farm after they've seen Teri.